I opened my eyes and for a disorienting second, the world existed as two overlapping realities. The first was a memory seared into my soul. The cold, sterile white of a padded room, the guttural screams of another patient, and the searing pain as my world went dark. The second was the soft morning light filtering through the gauzy curtains of my bedroom, illuminating the lavender walls and the plush white rug my mother, Isabella, had chosen for me. This was my room. The one from before. I lifted a hand, my vision swimming as I stared at the slender, pale fingers splayed against the dawn light. They were the hands of a pianist, an artist, someone coddled and cherished. Hands that had never been smashed in a car door, never scalded by boiling water, never rendered useless. A sob caught in my throat, half relief, half anguish. It wasn't a dream. The impossible, the miraculous had happened. I, Sienna Vance, had been reborn. I swung my legs out of bed, the plush carpet soft beneath my feet. The familiarity of it all was a physical ache. I needed to see it to confirm it was all real. I stepped out of my bedroom and onto the landing, the grand staircase of our family home spiraling down below me. That's when I heard it. A sharp, familiar voice that sent a jolt of pure, undiluted hatred through my veins. What is wrong with you? Smashing things first thing in the morning. Do you really think this is your house? It was Aunt Lydia, my father's sister-in-law. I walked down the stairs, my steps deliberate and quiet, a predator assessing its prey. There she was, her bony fingers wrapped around the arm of her daughter, Chloe's mother, Maya. Maya shrank back, her shoulders hunched, a picture of manufactured helplessness. I didn't mean to, Maya stammered, her eyes darting around as if looking for an escape route or more likely for me. In my past life, I would have rushed to her defense, soothing Aunt Lydia's temper and secretly pressing a wad of cash into Maya's waiting hand. I had been so blind, so gullible. I saw their poverty as misfortune, not the calculated laziness it was. I plastered on a well-behaved smile, the one my mother called my company face. It felt foreign on my lips, a mask I hadn't worn in what felt like a lifetime. Aunt Maya, what brings you here so early? I asked, my voice sweet and light. Where's Chloe? Maya's head snapped up, her eyes wide with surprise. I never asked questions. I just provided. She blinked, stammering for a moment before finding her voice. Chloe? She went to class. I tilted my head, the picture of innocent confusion. It's the weekend, Aunt Maya. What class could she possibly have? I didn't wait for her to fabricate an answer. Did you come to see me then? What's going on? The shock on her face was palpable. In my past life, these visits were our little secret. I was her private, generous benefactor, and she played the role of the struggling, grateful relative to perfection. But with Aunt Lydia's hawk-like gaze upon her, she couldn't dare ask for anything. No, nothing. It's fine, she muttered, her eyes dropping to the floor. I let the silence hang for a moment, savoring her discomfort. Aunt Lydia, I need to head out for a bit. If Mom comes back, please let her know for me. Aunt Lydia, satisfied that I wasn't about to enable Maya's nonsense, nodded. Of course, Sienna. Be careful. I offered one more saccharine smile to the two of them before turning and walking away, the click of the front door behind me sounding like a starting pistol. The cool morning air hit my face and I breathed it in, the memories of my previous life crashing over me like a tidal wave. My uncle, Maya's husband, had been a kind man but a terrible businessman. His small textile factory had failed, drowning him in debt he couldn't escape. He took his own life, leaving Maya and Chloe destitute. My mother, out of a sense of family duty and for my father's memory, had bought the failing factory from Maya. The money had cleared their debts, but in their minds it was a pittance. They saw the empire my mother built from that same factory, the now global Aura Fashion Group, and they coveted it. Then there was Leo Thorne. We were childhood sweethearts, our union a foregone conclusion in the eyes of our families. The Thorne family's shipping empire and the Vance family's fashion conglomerate were a perfect, powerful match. I had loved him, or thought I did, with the innocent fervor of a girl who had never known true cruelty. I saw now how Maya had played me, taking money from my trust fund with whispered promises to pay it back, appeals to family loyalty. And Chloe, my sweet, timid cousin Chloe. She had envied my life, my talent, my fiancé. She confessed to Leo how she wished she could paint like me, how she felt so untalented in comparison. And he, the man I was to marry, decided to fix that for her. The memory was a physical blow, forcing me to stop and lean against a cool brick wall. He had hired men to ambush me. They'd slammed my hand in the car door, then when I was screaming on the ground, one had produced a thermos and poured the scalding water over my fingers. They destroyed my hands, my art, my future. While I was hospitalized, Leo stole my portfolio, the one I'd been preparing for the prestigious Veritas Art Prize. He submitted it under Chloe's name. She won. She became the art world's newest darling overnight, the humble, self-taught prodigy. And Maya, she spun a web of lies for Leo, telling him how my mother had swindled her out of the factory, how we had stolen their legacy and left them to struggle. He ate it up, the narrative fitting perfectly with his desire to play the white knight to Chloe's damsel in distress. My mother, fierce and formidable Isabella Vance, fought for me. But the combined ruthlessness of the Thorne family and the public sympathy for Chloe was too much. When I confronted them, Leo looked me in the eye and said the words that shattered what was left of my soul. You were just a placeholder, Sienna. Chloe is easier to control. And the chair of Aura Fashion Group. Anyone can sit in it. After my mother's spirit was broken and she succumbed to a sudden, severe illness, I was truly alone. I used the last of the money she had hidden for me to hire a man I thought was a private investigator, a desperate, reckless plan for revenge. Leo found out. He didn't call the police. He had me declared mentally unstable, a danger to myself and others, and committed me to the Willowbrook Asylum. A week later, a fellow patient, a large, deranged man who believed I was a demon, beat me to death. The memory faded, leaving a cold, hard knot of resolve in my stomach. I would not be that girl again. I would not be the victim. Remembering the timeline of my past life, I knew exactly where I needed to go. Leo and Chloe's first accidental meeting was today. I hailed a cab and gave the address of a cafe across the street from the little bistro where Chloe worked part-time. I ordered a coffee and took a seat by the window, my heart a cold, steady drum in my chest. I hadn't waited long before I saw her. Chloe, pedaling furiously on a second-hand bicycle, her face a mask of anxiety about being late. Right on cue, a small, unleashed dog darted into the street. Chloe panicked, swerved, and fell, her bike scraping against the side of a sleek black sports car parked at the curb. My eyes went straight to the license plate. Thorne 1. Of course. The dog's owner, a flustered man, scooped up his pet, cooing to it before turning on Chloe. Watch where you're going. Look what you did. You're paying for this. Just as Chloe's eyes welled up with perfectly timed tears, the driver's side door opened. Leo Thorne stepped out. He was just as I remembered, tall, impeccably dressed, with a face that could launch 1,000 ships and a heart of pure ice. He glanced at the scratch on his car, a mere scuff on the pristine paint, then turned his gaze to the dog's owner. He said something low and calm, his posture radiating an authority that brooked no argument. The man, recognizing wealth and power, muttered an apology and scurried away. Leo then turned to Chloe. He reached out and tapped her lightly on the head, a gesture that was both condescending and intimate. Are you an idiot? Someone scolds you and you don't even know how to talk back. Chloe wiped her tears, a fragile flower in the concrete jungle. I'm so sorry about your car. I'll pay for the repairs, I promise. She then looked at her phone and let out a theatrical gasp. Oh no. I'm late for my shift. Here, she fumbled in her bag, scribbled a number on a napkin and shoved it into Leo's hand. This is my number. Make sure you contact me. And with that she scrambled to her feet and ran into the bistro, leaving a flustered, intrigued Leo in her wake. He looked at the napkin in his hand, a small, amused smile playing on his lips before he got back in his car and drove away. I looked down at my own phone. The entire interaction, from the tap on the head to the exchange of numbers, was captured in crisp, high-definition video. I had my first piece of evidence. The game had begun. A few days later, I was lounging in the living room pretending to read a book when Maya showed up again. The scent of her cheap perfume preceded her, a cloying sweetness that always made my nose wrinkle. She crept into the foyer, thinking the house was empty, her eyes darting around like a scavenging bird. She didn't expect my mother to be home. I saw the moment she spotted Isabella, who was sitting regally in her favorite armchair, reviewing documents. Maya froze, her body tensing to flee. Aunt Maya, I called out, my voice cutting through the quiet like a bell. Are you here to ask me for money again? I'm so sorry, I completely forgot to get cash out yesterday. I gave her my most guileless smile. Maya's face went through a series of contortions. Shock, fear, and finally a forced calm. Her eyes flickered toward my mother, who had looked up from her papers, her expression unreadable. No, Sienna, that's not it at all, Maya stammered, wringing her hands. I just came to check on you. I don't want your money. My mother set her papers down slowly. The silence in the room was heavy, oppressive. Since you don't need it, Isabella said, her voice deceptively soft, then you can return everything you borrowed before. Maya looked like she'd been slapped. Isabella, Claire, my mom said, turning her sharp gaze to me. Text Chloe. Tell her to come here. Now. I didn't need to be told twice. I sent a quick, simple message. Come to the house. No. It's about your mom. I knew she would come running. She'll be here soon, Mom. We waited in silence. Maya stood awkwardly by the door, unable to leave or stay. When Chloe rushed in 10 minutes later, her face was a mask of concern. She went straight to her mother, grabbing her hand. Mom, what are you doing here again? She said, her voice a perfect blend of exasperation and filial piety. She then turned her wide, innocent eyes to my mother. Aunt Isabella, I'm so sorry. I've told her not to bother you. I can take care of us. My mother regarded her coolly, not taken in by the performance for a second. Don't talk about the future. Let's settle the accounts for the past. She picked up her phone. I've already called my lawyer. I don't want you saying later that I bullied a widow and her daughter. Maya shifted uneasily. When the lawyer, a severe-looking man in a pristine suit, arrived, he opened a ledger and began to read aloud a list of transactions. Every loan, every gift of cash I had ever given Maya, meticulously recorded by my mother without my knowledge. The amounts, which I had never bothered to add up, were staggering. Is that all? My mother asked when he finished. Yes, Madam Chair. The total comes to $347,800. Maya gasped. That's impossible. How could it be that much? Chloe, ever the pragmatist, turned her pleading eyes to my mother. Aunt Isabella, please. Fianna's family. Can't you? I'm just a sophomore in college. I won't charge you interest, my mother said, her voice leaving no room for negotiation. Before you graduate, you will repay $1,500 every month. The remainder must be cleared within 10 years of your graduation. I decided to play my part. I tugged gently on my mother's sleeve, my voice a soft, sympathetic whisper. Mom, that's too much. We don't even need that money. Can't you just let it go? My mother pulled her sleeve from my grasp, her eyes never leaving Chloe's face. Sienna may be young and naive, but I am not a fool. Sign the contract. She gestured to the document the lawyer had produced. From now on, you will repay on time every month. Chloe's jaw tightened. I saw the flash of hatred in her eyes before she quickly masked it with determination. She took the pen, her hand trembling slightly, and signed her name with a flourish. I'll pay it back, she said, her voice tight. Every last cent. See that you do, my mother replied. After they left, the air in the room felt cleaner. My mother turned to me. What's going on with you lately? You used to be blind where they were concerned. I shrugged, picking at the fringe of a throw pillow. Who hasn't been blind before? My visions cleared up. If I don't like someone anymore, I break up with them. Our family doesn't need me to marry for business ties. My mother chuckled, a rich, warm sound. You little rascal. Are you hiding something from me? I looked away, feigning nonchalance. No, of course not. You can't hide things from me, Sienna. I can see right through you. She put her phone down, crossed her arms, and fixed me with that penetrating stare that made CEOs squirm. I hesitated, the weight of my secret pressing down on me. Could I tell her? Would she believe me? The love and concern in her eyes decided it. I took a deep breath and told her everything. I started with the small betrayals and led her through the destruction of my hands, the theft of my art, Leo's cold betrayal, her own illness, and my final brutal end in the asylum. When I finished, her face was pale, her eyes blazing with a fury I had never seen before. They were red-rimmed, but no tears fell. She pulled me into a fierce, crushing embrace, her body trembling with suppressed rage. The Thorne family, and that Maya with her daughter, what a pair of vipers, she hissed into my hair. She held me at arm's length, her grip firm on my shoulders. That boy Leo. Is he already tangled up with Chloe? Almost, I admitted. Then you need to break up with him. Do it now. I shook my head, my own resolve hardening. No. Not yet. The timing isn't right. You fool. You're going to get yourself burned. She pushed a gentle finger against my forehead, her worry warring with her pride. I won't, Mom. I promise. Leave the Thorne family to me. I clung to her arm, the playful daughter once more. She stroked my hair and I leaned my head on her shoulder, soaking in the solid, real warmth of her. This was what I was fighting for. This time I would protect her. I would protect us all. The following week I ended my silent treatment of Leo and agreed to have dinner with him. I chose an expensive restaurant, one I knew Chloe had recently started working at to pay off her new debt. Leo was all charm and apologies. I'm sorry, Sienna. I didn't mean to stand you up the other day. He reached across the table to take my hand, but I kept mine in my lap, my head bowed as I stirred my soup. He cut my steak for me, a gesture I had once found endearing but now saw as patronizing. Don't be mad anymore. I really did have an emergency. You weren't like this before. I looked up then, letting my eyes well up with practiced tears. Before, Leo, you never used to stand me up so often. I wiped delicately at the corner of my eye. If you've fallen for someone else, just tell me. I'll step aside. I won't stand in the way of true love. Panic flashed in his eyes. Genuine panic. He still needed me, needed the legitimacy and financial backing my family provided. No, that's not it. I didn't mean. He reached over, finally capturing my hand. Don't cry. It's my fault. All of it. I turned my head away, a picture of stubborn, wounded beauty. If this happens again, I whispered, my voice trembling, we're done. The relief that washed over his face was almost comical. He squeezed my hand. Thank you, Sienna. You're so good to me. I promise there won't be a next time. I forced myself to smile faintly, not pulling my hand away. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her. Chloe, in her server's uniform, standing frozen a few tables away, a tray of drinks in her hands. Her eyes were fixed on our joined hands, brimming with a jealousy so raw it was almost tangible. Perfect. You eat first, I said, gently extracting my hand. I'm just going to the restroom. I slipped away, timing my exit perfectly. In my past life, this was the moment Chloe, flustered from seeing us together, had spilled red wine all over a notoriously difficult customer. The man had caused a scene, demanding she be fired. Maya had later gone to Leo, and he, smitten with the struggling, misunderstood Chloe, had intervened. This time I was setting the stage. I wanted him to play the hero. I needed to tie them closer together. I lingered in the hallway, my phone discreetly recording. Right on schedule, I heard the crash of glass and an angry shout. What's wrong with you? I peered around the corner. Chloe stood mortified, a dark red stain spreading across a customer's white shirt. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to, she stammered. The man snatched napkins from her and shoved her back. What kind of restaurant is this? How could they hire someone so clumsy? I said I was sorry. Chloe said, her voice gaining a hint of defiance, a tactic she used to make herself seem strong and misunderstood. Oh, with that attitude you think this is my fault? The man moved to shove her again, and the commotion finally drew Leo's attention. He turned. His eyes found Chloe, her face pale and tear-streaked. His gaze narrowed and he stood, walking over with an air of unquestionable authority. When Chloe saw him, a visible wave of relief passed over her. She had found her protector. The manager scurried over, his face ashen. Mr. Thorne, sir, is there a problem? Leo ignored him, his focus entirely on Chloe. What's going on? He asked, his voice low. The customer, Mr. Braun, started to explain, but Leo cut him off with a sharp gesture. I wasn't asking you. I'm asking her. Tell me what happened. Chloe explained in a soft, trembling voice, painting herself as the victim of an unreasonable bully. I already apologized, she finished, her lower lip quivering. Without another word, Leo turned to the manager. Throw him out. The manager, terrified of offending a Thorne, immediately began ushering the sputtering Mr. Braun toward the exit. Chloe looked at Leo, her eyes shining with tears of gratitude and undisguised adoration. I stopped recording, saved the video and then walked back into the main dining area, my face a mask of innocent curiosity. I slipped my arm through Leo's. Are you finished eating? Shall we go? I saw Chloe's face fall the moment she saw me, her head bowing in a show of subservience. Chloe, you're here too? I asked, feigning surprise. Are you still on shift? Before she could answer, Leo spoke quickly. I just happened to see her, so I said hello. He was already lying to me just as I knew he would. I see. Well, since Chloe is still working, let's go. I smiled sweetly up at him. He nodded, relieved I wasn't making a scene. I turned back to Chloe. We'll be leaving then. Good luck with your shift. And with that, I pulled Leo out of the restaurant, making sure to walk slowly enough that I could feel the weight of his gaze as he glanced back one more time at my cousin. The hook was set. Now I just had to reel them in. The whispers started the next day, a soft, buzzing undercurrent on campus. I walked through the quad, my books held to my chest, a picture of serene innocence. The seeds I had planted were beginning to sprout. Did you see the forum post? A girl murmured to her friend near the oak tree. About Leo Thorne? Who hasn't? Playing the knight in shining armor for some random waitress. She's not random, another voice chimed in. That's Chloe, Sienna Vance's cousin. I heard she's always been a little jealous. I allowed a small, cold smile to touch my lips before smoothing my expression. I'd had one of my mother's more discreet IT consultants upload the video from the restaurant to the university's anonymous gossip forum. The title was simple, Heir Apparent Leo Thorne's White Knight Act, or something more. The comments were a beautiful mix of skepticism and venom. Look at the way he's looking at her. That's not a just helping look. Wait, so the cousin is making moves on Sienna's fiancé? Classy. I saw Chloe later that day, hurrying between classes with her head down, her shoulders hunched against the weight of the stairs. The unfriendly, speculative glances were a new experience for her. In our past life, I had always been her shield, my presence deflecting any criticism. Now I was the one directing the storm. My phone buzzed. Leo. I watched his name flash on the screen for a moment before switching the device to silent and slipping it back into my pocket. Let him stew. After my last class, I went straight home, ignoring the 3 missed calls and the string of apologetic texts that grew increasingly frantic. The next day he was waiting for me at the door of my lecture hall. He was leaning against the wall, looking down at his phone, his fingers flying over the screen. Probably texting her. He looked up as I approached, a practiced, charming smile on his face. Sienna, are you mad at me? He asked, falling into step beside me. No, I said, my tone neutral. Then why didn't you reply to my messages yesterday? There was a hint of frustration in his voice, a rarity. He wasn't used to being ignored. I stopped walking and turned to face him, my gaze direct. My phone was on silent. I let the silence hang for a beat, then asked, my voice deceptively soft. Leo, that day you didn't come to pick me up. Did you go see Chloe instead? His mask slipped for a fraction of a second, a flicker of surprise and guilt in his eyes before his composure slammed back into place. I accidentally ran into her. She fell off her bike. I just gave her a ride to the campus infirmary. It was nothing. He was already weaving his half-truths, the foundation of their entire relationship. I see, I said softly, letting a trace of hurt color my voice. I started walking again and he stayed close, his presence suddenly suffocating. Halfway to the cafeteria we saw her. Chloe was standing by the water fountain, a lone, forlorn figure. As if to prove his loyalty to me, Leo tightened his grip on my hand and pointedly looked away, steering us past her as if she were a ghost. I heard the whispers bloom around us. See? He didn't even look at her. He waited all morning for Sienna. That's true love. No way he'd give her up for someone like Chloe. I wanted to laugh. In my past life, the narrative had been the opposite. I was the unwanted fiancé, the obstacle to their epic love story. The campus had whispered that I was the third wheel, that true love conquers all even if it means betraying your cousin. Now I was controlling the narrative. After a tense, silent lunch, Leo went to buy me a bottle of water from the vending machine near the gym. I glanced at my watch. It was time. I slung my bag over my shoulder and followed him at a distance. He was standing in front of the machine, the last bottle of mineral water tumbling into the slot. At the exact same moment, another hand, small and delicate, pressed the button. Chloe. Leo turned, saw her, and that infuriatingly lazy smirk spread across his face. You again. With reflexes honed from years of sports, he snatched the water bottle just before she could. I pressed first. Chloe protested, her voice rising with a whine. She reached on her tiptoes, trying to grab the bottle he now held high above his head. He laughed, a low, teasing sound, deliberately stepping back, leading her in a little dance. You've got to be faster than that. It happened in a blur. I'm not sure who stumbled first, if he stepped back too far or if she lunged too eagerly. The bottle flew from his hand, and in the next chaotic moment, both of them tumbled to the ground in a tangle of limbs. The quad was packed. A collective gasp rippled through the students nearby. All anyone saw was a boy and a girl falling together in what looked like a clumsy, intimate embrace. And worse, as they struggled to untangle themselves, his head turned, her face lifted, and their lips brushed. It was an accident. I knew it was an accident. But it was a perfectly timed, perfectly executed accident from my perspective. I had positioned myself to have the clearest view, my phone already recording. I gritted my teeth, not from anger, but from the effort of suppressing my triumph. I let the shock and hurt wash over my features, making my eyes well up with genuine, convenient tears. Leo scrambled to his feet, his face a mixture of annoyance and dawning horror as he realized the scene they'd created. He saw the crowd. He saw me. His gaze locked onto mine. Sienna. But I didn't let him finish. I gave him one last devastating look. A look filled with the betrayal of 1,000 lifetimes, then turned on my heel and ran. I heard him call my name, heard him start to chase after me, but I was faster, fueled by a purpose he couldn't comprehend. I didn't look back. Outside the cafeteria, the whispers erupted into a full-blown roar. By the time I reached home, the campus forum had exploded. The video of their fall, their accidental kiss, was everywhere. The anonymous account I used had posted it with the caption, "An accident? Or a pattern?" Leo Thorne and Chloe Vance's cozy campus moment. The court of public opinion was now in session, and I was both the plaintiff and the judge. That evening, Maya showed up at the house again, her face pale and drawn. I was sitting in the living room with my mother, who had already been briefed on the day's events. "Sienna," Maya began, wringing her hands. "He told me it was just an accident. None of it was real." I looked at her coldly. "Fake? You mean Chloe wasn't trying to steal my boyfriend?" I let the question hang in the air, heavy with implication. "I was even thinking," I continued, my voice softening into a false magnanimity, "if Chloe really liked Leo that much, maybe I should just let her have him. But since you say it was fake, then I suppose I should believe Leo." The reaction was instantaneous. Both Maya and Chloe, who had been hovering by the door, snapped their heads up, their eyes wide with a mixture of hope and panic. The idea of me willingly stepping aside was their dream scenario, but they couldn't admit it. "What's wrong?" I asked, tilting my head. "Didn't you just say Chloe doesn't like Leo?" I gave them a sweet, forgiving smile. "I've decided to forgive him." The look of sheer, unadulterated frustration on Chloe's face was a work of art. I had taken their narrative and twisted it back on itself. They couldn't win. The next day, I arrived at the teaching building to find Leo waiting at the entrance, holding a ridiculously large bouquet of blood-red roses. It was a scene straight out of my past life, but the context was all wrong. In my memories, he was holding those roses for Chloe after one of their fabricated fights, a grand, public apology that solidified their epic romance in the eyes of our peers. Now he was using the same gesture for me. The irony was delicious. He started toward me, his expression a blend of hope and anxiety. I looked at him, letting my eyes shimmer with unshed tears, my lower lip trembling with a vulnerability I no longer felt. When he moved to hug me, I took a delicate step back, avoiding his embrace. At that very moment, I caught sight of Chloe, standing at the edge of the crowd that had gathered to watch the drama. Her face was like stone, her eyes icy with a jealousy so profound it seemed to chill the air around her. "No way," someone nearby whispered, not quietly enough. "Does anyone really think they can win against Sienna Vance? See? That's real love. Who would be foolish enough to make a move on Leo when Sienna is right here?" I reached out and clasped Leo's hand, then turned my gaze to Chloe. My voice was clear and carried, laced with a sorrowful generosity. "I believe you two are innocent. I forgive you." A murmur ran through the crowd. Sienna is way too naive. She actually believes that? Who doesn't know? People only dare to act shameless and go after someone else's boyfriend because they think the girlfriend is too trusting. I heard the whispers just as I knew Chloe did. I smiled gently at her, a queen bestowing grace upon a subject. They don't mean any harm, Chloe. Don't take it to heart. I saw her freeze, the words hitting her like a physical blow. In my past life I had defended her from campus bullying, and she had later told me those same people weren't malicious, just blunt. Now I was using her own weapon against her. I'm leaving. I still have class, I said, tugging Leo with me into the classroom, leaving her standing alone in the hallway, humiliated and seething. Once in my seat, I pulled out my phone and logged into the forum. Under the hottest thread, the one debating my naivete, I left a single comment from my real account. I believe in my boyfriend and my cousin. They won't betray me. Thank you all for your concern. It was the perfect touch. The saintly, trusting girlfriend. It painted a target on Chloe's back bigger than any insult ever could. The stage was set for her downfall. All I had to do was wait for her to play her part. The rain started in the afternoon, a heavy, relentless downpour that turned the campus pathways into shallow rivers. I stood by the window of the library watching students scramble for cover, their umbrellas blooming like colorful mushrooms. I knew Chloe had an evening class, a theater workshop that required her to haul cumbersome props across campus. She couldn't afford to miss it. Her scholarship depended on participation. I had taken the liberty of mentioning her schedule and her newfound notoriety to a few of the more assertive girls in her department. The ones who saw social climbing as a contact sport. I watched from my dry vantage point as Chloe struggled with a large, unwieldy cardboard set piece, her umbrella doing little to protect her or the prop. A group of 3 girls emerged from the drama building, huddled under a single large golf umbrella. They spotted her. I couldn't hear their words from this distance, but I saw the scene unfold like a silent film. They surrounded her. One of them, a tall girl with a severe black bob, said something that made Chloe flinch. Another reached out and gave Chloe's shoulder a sharp shove. The set piece tumbled into a puddle, the painted scenery instantly dissolving into a blur of color. Chloe tried to retrieve it, but the girl with the black bob grabbed a handful of her hair, yanking her head back. Her mouth moved and I could easily imagine the words. Did you really think you could snag Leo Thorne? Look in a mirror. How can you even compare to Sienna? Some people are like toads wanting swan meat. Don't even know their place. Chloe was crying now, the rain mixing with her tears, her humiliation complete. This was the moment. In my past life, Leo had appeared like a knight on a white steed, sweeping her into his arms and glaring down her tormentors. It had been a pivotal scene in their love story. Right on cue, the crowd of onlookers parted. Leo strode through, his expression dark. He didn't run, but his pace was quick, purposeful. He reached the group and without a word he pulled Chloe to her feet. Her legs, weak from fear and the struggle, gave way and she collapsed against his chest, sobbing. He held her, his arm a firm band around her back, and glared at the group of girls. What are you all doing? His voice, though I couldn't hear it, cut through the rain. I saw his lips form the words, "She's still a person. Don't let me catch you pulling this again." The girls shrank back, intimidated by his presence and his name. They scattered, leaving Leo holding a trembling, soaking wet Chloe in the middle of the quad. And I stood in the middle of the crowd that had gathered under the library's overhang, my own elegant umbrella held aloft. I made sure my face was visible, a perfect mask of devastation. I let my lower lip quiver, let my shoulders slump. A single, perfect tear traced a path down my cheek, followed by another. I looked every bit the heartbroken girlfriend, witnessing her ultimate betrayal in the pouring rain. I stood there, my thin frame trembling slightly as if I might shatter at any moment, making sure I was in the sightline of several smartphone cameras. I let the world see my pain, my humiliation. I let them see Sienna Vance, the saint, being martyred by her cousin and her fiancé. Once I was certain the scene was captured, I let the crushed, despairing expression settle on my face. I turned slowly as if the movement took every ounce of my strength and walked away into the rain, a picture of utter desolation. The explosion of gossip was instantaneous. The campus, starved for drama, feasted on this new development. Whispers spread like wildfire. By the time I got home, drenched and shivering for real, the story was everywhere. I didn't even have to ask. My mother, seeing the news on her own social media feeds, was already on the phone. By the top 3 trending spots, I heard her say, her voice cold as steel, "I want this everywhere." Within the hour, the headlines were splashed across every major entertainment and gossip site. Scandal. Thorn heir, secret campus affair with girlfriend's cousin. Moral collapse. Inside the love triangle rocking high society. Sienna Vance. The heartbreaking betrayal the cameras caught. The court of public opinion, which had once been mildly skeptical, now delivered a unanimous verdict. Leo and Chloe were the villains and I was the wronged angel. The next part of my plan went into motion. Using the Thorn family's name as the reason, we can't be associated with someone causing such scandal for Mr. Thorn. My mother's contacts had Chloe and Maya fired from every part-time job they held. The cafe, the library, the tutoring center. Their already precarious financial situation, thanks to the repayment contract, became desperate. My phone lit up with calls and messages from Leo. Apologies, explanations, please. I ignored them all. Let him drown in the consequences of his actions. Sienna, Aunt Lucy whispered, coming into my room later that evening. Young Master Thorn is waiting outside. He's been there for hours. I didn't look up from my sketchbook. Don't bother with him, I replied lightly. That night around midnight I pulled back my bedroom curtains. There he was, a lone, shadowy figure leaning against his car at the gate, the rain still misting down around him. He looked pathetic. For some reason, the sight of him standing there in the cold, being utterly ignored, let me sleep more soundly than I had in weeks. The next morning he was gone. But as my car pulled up to the campus gates, he was there again, emerging from his own vehicle. He looked haggard, his clothes rumpled, his eyes shadowed with sleeplessness. He moved to block my path. Sienna, we need to talk. A crowd gathered instantly, students stopping in their tracks, phones already raised, eager for the next act in the drama. I looked at him, my face a calm, emotionless mask. Leo, I said, my voice clear and carrying. Let's break up. The crowd gasped collectively. Sienna, no. Listen to me, let me explain, he pleaded, his voice cracking with a desperation I knew was for his crumbling reputation, not for me. I looked at him with wounded resignation. Explain what? That you don't actually like Chloe? I let my voice tremble just slightly. That yesterday you didn't mean to leave me standing in the rain while you held her? That's not it. It's not like that. Just listen, he stammered, reaching for me. I took a step back, evading his touch. My voice grew weaker, sadder, layered with a grief that was both performance and the ghost of a very real past pain. I've seen what it looks like when you loved me, Leo. I paused, letting the memory of a sweeter, simpler time hang in the air for both of us. That's how I know now. The one you like is Chloe. My words were final, absolute. I turned my head, my eyes scanning the crowd until I found her. Chloe, trying to hide behind a group of students, her face pale and terrified. I walked over, my steps deliberate, and pulled her forward, setting her directly in front of Leo. I looked at him, then at her, my voice sorrowful yet unyielding, the perfect picture of a woman making the ultimate sacrifice. Leo, we're done. I took a shaky breath. I'll give you too my blessing. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't wait for the stunned silence to break. I turned and walked away, my head held high, leaving them together in the spotlight they had craved but now found burning too brightly. The clean break was made. It had gone more smoothly than I had ever imagined. The aftermath was swift. Leo tried to win me back, of course. He sent flowers, jewels, pathetic letters filled with lies. He even begged for a reconciliation meeting. But my mother, Isabella Vance, unleashed her fury. When Leo's mother came to our house, pleading on his behalf, it only served to anger my mother more. She coldly informed them that the Vance family would be re-evaluating all its business partnerships. Within a week, she had cut off several key collaborations with the Thorn family's shipping empire. Only then did they finally quiet down. The Thorns were in the middle of fierce internal succession struggles, and Leo, backed by my family's influence, had been the clear heir. Now, with that support severed, his footing was no longer secure. The vultures within his own family began to circle. I later learned through the grapevine that Leo had been punished under the family's strict disciplinary rules. The Thorns lost several key clients, their funding chain fractured, and the company's internal unity began to splinter. Though Leo publicly claimed he'd cut ties with Chloe, I knew their relationship continued in the shadows, a murky, undefined thing. It couldn't become official. He was too damaged and she was too much of a liability. But they were bound together now, tied by scandal and shared ruin. Because of his role in the family rivalry, Leo had made many enemies. And once he lost his influence and my protection, those enemies were eager to step on him. It was only a matter of time before one of them struck. I poured my focus into the one thing that had always been truly mine: my art. The upcoming National Oil Painting Championship was approaching. In my previous life, this was the contest where Leo had told me, "You don't need the fame or the prize money, but Chloe does. Give her this chance." When I had refused, he had helped Chloe steal my paintings. This time I would be ready. This time the masterpiece would be my revenge. The silence in the house was a living thing, thick and expectant. I had given the live-in staff the night off, a calculated move. The day before the submission deadline for the National Oil Painting Championship, the air always hummed with a specific tension, and I knew it would draw them like moths to a flame. My entry, a piece I titled Resonance, was already submitted. The digital file was safely with the judges, and the physical canvas stood on an easel in the center of my studio, covered by a cloth. It was a decoy, a beautifully rendered but ultimately hollow piece designed to be stolen. The doorbell chimed, its sound unnaturally loud in the quiet. I didn't get up. I waited, listening to the hesitant footsteps in the foyer. Then the studio door creaked open. Maya stood there, wringing her hands with Chloe hovering behind her. Chloe's eyes, however, weren't on me. They were darting around the room, taking in the tubes of paint, the stacked canvases, and finally, landing on the covered easel. I leaned back in my chair, feigning casual indifference. "Maya." "Chloe. To what do I owe this late visit?" Maya offered a tremulous smile. "Sienna," Chloe came to apologize. "For everything." Chloe stepped forward, her posture a masterpiece of forced remorse. "I'm so sorry, Sienna. For the misunderstanding with Leo. It was all my fault." I let out a light, airy laugh that didn't reach my eyes. "I don't need an apology. I've already let Leo go. He's all yours." I watched her flinch at my bluntness. "Unless, of course, you're here because you two kissed by accident again?" Maya tugged sharply on Chloe's sleeve. The message was clear. "Don't ruin this." I sighed as if bored. "If you came here just to talk about that, then there's no need for forgiveness." "Actually, Sienna," Maya interjected quickly, seeing their opportunity slipping away. "We're here because of the competition. Chloe is entering, but she's missing some specific supplies. Her cadmium red is all dried out and she can't afford a new tube. We were hoping to borrow some." I knew it. The script was unfolding exactly as I had written it in my mind. "Oh, I see," I said, standing up. "So you're here to borrow tools. Fine. Come with me." I led them into my studio, a spacious room flooded with northern light, even now in the evening gloom. I made a show of gesturing to the organized chaos. "Look around, Chloe. If you're missing anything, find it yourself." Her expression was a painful mix of stubborn pride and raw humiliation. She needed my charity but despised me for having it. The irony was exquisite. They coveted my life, my possessions, my talent, all while looking down on me for possessing them. My phone chose that moment to ring. My mother's face flashed on the screen. "Perfect. Look for what you need on your own," I said, my tone dismissive. I turned to leave, but as I did, I deliberately brushed against my computer desk, swiveling the monitor slightly. The screen, which had been dark, lit up to reveal the competition's online portal, open and waiting. The submit entry button glowed enticingly. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Chloe's fingers twitch. Her gaze was locked on the screen, a hungry, calculating look in her eyes that she quickly masked when she realized I was watching. I gave her a small, meaningless smile and walked out, closing the studio door behind me but not latching it fully. I stood in the hallway, my ear pressed to the crack in the door. I heard Maya's frantic whisper, "Chloe, this isn't right. What if someone finds out?" And Chloe's reply, cold and determined, "It's fine, Mom. Sienna doesn't need this chance, but I do. No one will notice. I'll take a few photos, maybe one of her smaller practice pieces. I'll put it back when I return the paints. She has so many, she'll never know one is missing." I felt a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. The trap had been sprung. They had walked right into it. The day of the finals was a spectacle. The venue was all gleaming marble and soft, strategic lighting, filled with the murmur of the art world's elite and the constant flash of cameras. The entire event was being live-streamed. I walked in on my mother's arm, Isabella Vance, a vision of powerful elegance, and I, the talented daughter, the picture of poised grace. We took our seats in the reserved front row. Chloe was already there, a few seats down. She looked nervous, but there was a brittle confidence about her. She had submitted my decoy painting, the one she had photographed and replicated with painstaking, talentless effort. "Sienna," she whispered, leaning toward me as the lights dimmed slightly. "Who do you think will win the championship this time?" I turned my head slowly and gave her a small, chilling smile. "Definitely not you." Her face stiffened, a crack in her composure. "I didn't say that. There are so many talented artists here. Who knows who will win?" Before I could reply, the awards ceremony began. The host's voice boomed through the hall, announcing the honorable mentions, then the third-place winner. Neither of our names were called. I saw Chloe relax beside me, a slow exhalation of breath. Her confidence returned. She believed her victory was assured. Finally, the host drew out the suspense for the grand prize. "And the champion of this year's National Oil Painting Championship is..." He paused for dramatic effect. The entire hall held its breath. Chloe leaned in close to my ear, her voice a venomous whisper. "Cousin, sorry, but the championship is mine." She lifted her chin, a perfectly practiced smile on her lips, and began to rise from her seat. "Sienna Vance, creator of Resonance." The spotlight slammed onto me, but its periphery also illuminated Chloe's half-risen body and her frozen, crumbling smile. Her triumphant pose, stuck mid-air, looked utterly ridiculous. The audience's applause was deafening. I smoothed my skirt, not looking at her, and leaned close. "Didn't I say? Definitely not you." Then, step by deliberate step, I walked onto the stage. The host beamed at me. "Congratulations, Miss Vance." "Thank you," I said, my voice clear and steady as I accepted the heavy crystal trophy. Just as the host was about to declare the competition over, a strangled cry cut through the applause. "No. This is impossible. The judges must have made a mistake." It was Chloe. She was on her feet, her face a mask of outrage and disbelief. The audience gasped. From the judges' panel, the eldest and most distinguished artist, Master Laurent, frowned deeply. "Young lady," his voice echoed with authority, "are you questioning the professional judgment of us old men?" "No, but how could the champion be her?" Chloe stammered, pointing a trembling finger at me. I clearly..." She couldn't finish the sentence, but her meaning was clear. As she floundered, I calmly reached into the small clutch I carried and produced a USB drive. I handed it to the host. "Perhaps this will provide some clarity," I said, my voice amplified by the microphone. I leaned in and whispered a few words to him. His eyes widened slightly. After a quick, hushed conversation with Master Laurent, who nodded grimly, the host inserted the drive into the computer connected to the giant screen behind us. "Miss Chloe Vance," I said, my gaze sharp and unwavering as I turned to face her. "Are you claiming the championship should have been yours?" "Yes," she shot back, her voice trembling with feigned outrage. "On what grounds?" I sneered. "Because of this painting?" I took the decoy painting from the host's assistant. It was the one she had submitted, the poor imitation of my work. I submitted it first. How could the championship go to her? She copied me. Chloe cried, rushing onto the stage now, her desperation making her reckless. "But our works are completely different," I countered, my voice cold as ice. "How exactly did I plagiarize?" With a sharp, dramatic movement, I turned the canvas in my hands, revealing the other side. It was blank. A gasp rippled through the audience. Then the speakers crackled to life with a recording, Chloe's and Maya's voices, clear as day from my studio. "Chloe, this isn't right. What if someone finds out?" "It's fine, Mom. Sienna doesn't need this chance, but I do. No one will notice. I'll imitate one piece and put it back when I return the tools." The big screen lit up, showing the surveillance footage from a hidden camera in my studio. It showed Chloe, her back to the camera, deleting my registration information from the computer. Then it showed her taking out her phone and photographing my decoy painting from every possible angle. "Chloe, you set me up," she gasped, her eyes wide with horror as she finally realized the depth of the trap. Tears welled in my eyes, perfectly timed. Sister, I said, my voice breaking with manufactured hurt. How could you think of me that way? You deleted my registration, stole my work, and I stayed silent for the sake of your reputation. I wiped delicately at the corner of my eye. If you hadn't spoken up here today, I would never have exposed you. I let the tears fall, the picture of betrayed innocence. Chloe collapsed to the ground, the reality of her situation crashing down on her. She was finished. Blacklisted from the art world, facing academic discipline, possibly even expulsion for plagiarism and sabotage. I knelt down, crushing away my tears, and pressed my face against her neck in a false gesture of comfort. To the outside world it looked like I was forgiving her even now. In truth, I whispered words into her ear that were for her alone, my voice a cold, sharp blade. This is exactly what you deserve. Then I stood, clutched my trophy to my chest, and threw myself into my mother's waiting arms, the victorious daughter, wronged but triumphant. The live stream, which would have normally attracted a niche audience, exploded. Thanks to Chloe's very public disgrace, viewership skyrocketed. The story hit the trending searches within minutes. Plagiarism scandal rocks art world. Vance heiress exposes cousin's theft. The sordid love triangle behind the stolen art. Chloe's greed, her duplicity, her entanglement with Leo. It was all dragged into the harsh light of day. Later, in a move of calculated magnanimity, I submitted a letter to the university pleading for leniency. In the end, Chloe was only given probation. But the damage was done. The pointing and whispering followed her everywhere, and this time, there was no Leo Thorne to shield her. He was fighting his own battles. Both she and Maya lost the last of their menial jobs, their financial situation becoming truly desperate. My revenge was not yet complete, but the taste of it was sweet. I had taken her dream and shattered it with the very talent she had tried to steal. And Leo was next. A few days after the competition, my phone buzzed with a call from a number I had almost deleted. Leo. I let it ring a few times before answering, my voice a model of detached politeness. Sienna, can we meet? He asked, his tone uncharacteristically subdued. Sure, I agreed lightly. I arrived at the upscale cafe 20 minutes late on purpose. He was already there, nursing a black coffee, his shoulders slumped. He looked diminished. The golden boy had lost his luster. Sorry I'm late, I said, sliding into the seat opposite him. It's fine. I just got here myself. He gave me a weak smile. I saw everything about the competition. I'm sorry, Sienna. I had no idea Chloe was capable of that. I looked at him expressionlessly, stirring my latte. Why did you want to meet Leo? He leaned forward, his eyes earnest, a performance I knew well. Sienna, there's nothing between me and her. That was all just an accident, a misunderstanding. Is there really no chance for us? I studied his face, marveling inwardly at the sheer audacity, the shamelessness. He saw his empire crumbling and was scrambling back to his most reliable asset, me. Finally, I let my gaze soften, looking out the window as if lost in a fond memory. Leo, do you remember when you confessed to me? A spark of hope ignited in his eyes. Of course I do. It was at the track. After I won the regional championship. I nodded, a gentle smile playing on my lips. You held your trophy and you told me. I prompted him. He took the bait, his voice gaining a little of its old confidence. I said that every future victory would be another confession to you. I looked directly at him, my smile sweet and devastating. Win another trophy. Win a race and confess to me again. Then I'll forgive you. His face lit up with a joy so profound it was almost pathetic. You mean it? I do. You can't take it back, he said, a boyish grin spreading across his face. Just wait for me. After that, he threw himself into training with a desperate, feverish intensity. He hadn't raced seriously in months, not since the internal family conflicts had consumed his attention. His leg, I knew from the gossip mills, still bothered him from a minor racing incident a year ago, a weakness his rivals would be all too aware of. But the promise of reconciliation, of restoring his place as the Vance-approved heir, was a potent drug. He trained day and night, pushing his body and his car to the limit. As the date for the Canyon Run Grand Prix drew near, he messaged me, Sienna, promise me you'll be there to watch. I'll be there, I replied. On race day I dressed with deliberate care. I wore the same sapphire blue dress I had worn when he first confessed to me, a not-so-subtle reminder of what he was fighting for. I arrived at the racetrack, the air thick with the smell of high-octane fuel and roaring engines. The grandstand was packed with socialites, adrenaline junkies, and corporate sponsors. Leo saw me in the pits, his eyes lighting up. He walked over, his racing suit unzipped to the waist. You came. I said I would. I'll win, he vowed, his gaze intense. For you. I gave him my brightest, most trusting smile. I know you will. The Grant family was already in decline, and Leo's public fall from grace had been spectacular. His presence here, trying to reclaim his former glory, was a provocation. I didn't have to lift a finger. His enemies, the ones he had made on his way up, were eager to see him fall. As he was doing his final checks, a voice called out from a nearby pit stall. Well, look who it is. Why is young Master Thorne still racing? Leo's head snapped up. It was Cade Jensen, the son of a rival shipping magnate, a man Leo had publicly humiliated in a business deal last year. Cade smirked, leaning against his own car. Your little girlfriend's family is already being ruined by the Thorns, and you still have the heart to play with your toys? Leo's hands clenched into fists. What did you just say? Cade laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. No way, right? Young Master Grant can't be that heartless. He shoved his phone toward Leo. Haven't you seen the news? The screen displayed a headline, one I knew to be completely fabricated, planted by a reputable source my mother's PR firm often used. Vance family on the brink? Aura Fashion Group stock plummets amidst scandal. It was a lie, but it was a believable one given the recent very public drama. Leo's face paled. His concentration, that fragile focus thing he had built over weeks of training, shattered. I saw the doubt and panic cloud his eyes. The race hadn't even begun and Cade had already won. The starting lights flashed. Engines screamed. The race began. For the first few laps, Leo's raw talent held. He was in the lead, his car a red streak against the black asphalt. But I could see it from my seat in the stands. His driving was aggressive, frantic, not the controlled precision of a true champion. He was driving with emotion, not with skill. The pain in his old injury must have been flaring up with the G-forces of the tight turns. And Cade's words, that poisonous seed of doubt, were festering in his mind. Was he out here chasing a trophy while my family's empire crumbled? Was he proving himself to a woman who might have nothing left to offer him? On the final hairpin turn it happened. His focus wavered for a split second. His car pushed too hard, lost traction. It veered off the racing line, tires screeching, and slammed sideways into the concrete barrier with a sickening crunch of metal and fiberglass. A collective gasp erupted from the crowd. People shot to their feet, faces pale with shock. I, however, remained seated, my expression cool and composed. I felt nothing. No fear, no pity, no satisfaction. Just a quiet acknowledgement that another piece of my plan had fallen into place. Outside the hospital operating room, I leaned against the wall, the picture of concerned exhaustion. The Thorne family arrived in a panicked, angry swarm. Leo's mother, Eleanor, saw me and her eyes narrowed into venomous slits. Sienna, she spat. Why are you here? I met her gaze without flinching. Leo invited me to watch the race. When the surgeon emerged, his face was grim. The news was delivered in clipped, professional tones. The damage to his leg was too severe. To save his life, they had to amputate. Eleanor Thorne let out a wail, her legs giving way beneath her as she collapsed into her husband's arms. Mr. Thorne, his face ashen, gritted his teeth and signed the consent form. I watched the entire farce, this family I had once hoped to join, now crumbling before my eyes. I exhaled softly, the sound lost in the hospital corridor's sterile silence. Later, when Leo woke from the anesthesia, I went to his room. The family had been shooed out for a moment, leaving only a hired caretaker. Leo dismissed him the instant he saw me standing in the doorway. I stood by his bed. He was pale, his eyes sunken, but they burned with a cold, sharp fury. He knew. This was your doing, he rasped, his voice weak but filled with venom. I looked at the shape of his body under the blanket, the space where his leg should have been. You lost control on your own, I answered evenly. Don't play games with me, Sienna Vance. You're ruthless. I met his furious stare, my own calm and unwavering. Hurts, doesn't it? I said softly. I pulled the chair closer and sat down. I was in even more pain once. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a whisper. Leo, you liked Chloe. You wanted her to win that competition. What did that have to do with me? Why did you have to destroy me? I began to lay it out for him, not everything but enough. The ruined hands. The stolen portfolio. The asylum. I watched his expression shift from rage to confusion and then to a dawning, horrified understanding. He thought I was recounting a fictional revenge fantasy, but the specifics, the intimate knowledge of his and Chloe's plans shook him. You're insane, he shouted, his voice cracking, half hysterical. I looked at him, this broken man in the hospital bed, without an ounce of pity. Enjoy it, Leo, I said, standing up. This is exactly what you deserve. As I stepped out of the room, I saw her. Chloe hovering just outside the door, wanting to go in to offer comfort to her true love. I brushed past her without a glance. She slipped into the room, and a moment later, Leo's furious roar echoed into the hallway. Get out. It was followed by the loud crash of something, probably a water pitcher, shattering against the wall. While Leo was hospitalized, my mother moved with the quiet, devastating efficiency of a shark. She sabotaged several key Thorne family projects. Longtime partners, sensing blood in the water, began to withdraw. Shareholders, panicking, started dumping their stock. The internal vultures Leo had feared began a hostile takeover from within, buying up shares at rock-bottom prices. Skilled foremen and veteran employees, seeing the company's imminent collapse, were poached by rivals or left of their own accord. Factories halted production. Suppliers, unpaid for months, began legal proceedings. The Thorne family's capital chain, stretched to its limit by mismanagement and internal strife, snapped completely. Their stock hit the limit, down day after day. They were forced to liquidate, selling off core industries for pennies on the dollar to cover their debts. My mother, along with her allies, moved in for the kill, dividing the spoils of the once great Thorne shipping empire. On the day of the final asset sale contract signing, I represented my mother. I walked into the conference room, now owned by a Vance subsidiary, and took my seat at the head of the table. The Thornes, the old patriarch Leo's parents, a few shell-shocked uncles, filed in. They looked up at me, seated in the power position, and understood everything. This wasn't just business. This was a vendetta. Eleanor Thorne sprang to her feet, her face contorted with rage. Sienna, she hissed. When you were with Leo, did we ever treat you poorly? I met her furious gaze, and the ghosts of my past life swirled around me. I remembered the condescending smiles, the way they had dismissed my pain, how they had stood by as Leo destroyed me. In my past life, I said, my voice cold and clear, you helped them take everything from me. I looked at you then with the same anger you feel now. The old Mr. Thorne, defeated and broken, picked up the pen. As he signed the documents that surrendered his life's work, Leo, who had been brought in a wheelchair, glared at me, his eyes burning with impotent hatred. If you have a grudge, he snarled, take it out on me. Why did you have to be so ruthless? Why destroy my entire family? I looked at each of their faces in turn, the architects of my misery in another lifetime. None of you are innocent, I said coolly. When the lawyer packed away the executed documents, I stood. I turned and walked out of the conference room, my steps steady and sure. Behind me, I heard the sound of a crumbling empire, the choked sobs, the furious shouts, the sound of a chair being knocked over. It was the sound of my liberation. The Thornes were finished. But my work was not yet done. There was still one loose end to tie up. One last person who needed to face the consequences of a life she should never have lived. With the Thorne empire dismantled and Leo a broken ghost, a strange quiet settled over my life. The frantic energy of plotting and executing my revenge was gone, leaving behind a calm, hollowed-out space. But it wasn't over. A loose thread still dangled, frayed and pathetic, but a thread nonetheless. Chloe. She and Maya had vanished from their shabby apartment, their debts unpaid, their reputations in tatters. The probation from the university was the least of their worries. They were pariahs in a city that had once been their playground for manipulation. I had my mother's contacts keep a distant, casual watch. They wouldn't get far. I threw myself into my art, my real art. The piece that had won the championship, the true resonance, now hung in our main living room. It was a storm of color and emotion, A depiction of rebirth from ashes that only I understood the true depth of. I started new projects, my hands whole and capable, flying across canvases with a freedom that felt like a constant, quiet celebration. It was during a visit to a new gallery opening that I saw her. Or rather, a ghost of her. Chloe was working as a coat check girl, her head bowed, her shoulders slumped. She was thinner, her clothes cheap and ill-fitting. She didn't see me and I didn't acknowledge her. It was enough to know where she was, to see the tangible proof of her fall. A week later, the thread pulled taut. I received a message from a blocked number, but the desperate, wheedling tone was unmistakably Maya's. Sienna. Please. We have nowhere to go. Chloe is sick. We just need a little help, just enough for a doctor. You've won. Isn't that enough? I deleted the message. The desperation was a familiar song, one I had no interest in hearing again. But it told me they were reaching their breaking point. A broken person when cornered does one of two things. They collapse or they lash out. I was counting on Chloe to lash out. My mother, ever perceptive, found me in my studio one evening. The aunt sent you a message, didn't she? She asked, not looking up from the sketch I was working on. I didn't bother denying it. They're getting desperate. She's always been desperate. It's her default state. Isabella Vance came to stand behind me, her hands resting on my shoulders. But desperation makes people stupid. And dangerous. I've increased security at the house. I'm not afraid of them, Mom. I am, she said simply, her voice soft. Not of what they can do to us now, but of the shadow they've cast over you. This vengeance. It's changed you, Sienna. I put my charcoal down and turned to look at her. It saved me. Did it? Her gaze was deep, seeing parts of me I kept hidden even from myself. Or did it just trade one prison for another? The thorns are gone. Leo is ruined. Chloe and Maya are destitute. When does it end? When do you get to be free? Her words struck a chord I hadn't known was there. I had been so focused on the destruction of my enemies that I hadn't considered what came after. What was I without this purpose? The answer came a few nights later. I was returning home late from the studio, the family driver pulling through the gates of our estate. As the car crunched up the gravel driveway, the motion sensor lights flicked on, illuminating a hunched figure lurking near the side entrance to the garden. Chloe. She was clutching a small dark object in her hand. It wasn't a weapon. It was a can of spray paint. Rage, cold and pure, washed over me. Not for the threat to our property but for the sheer, pathetic audacity. After everything, she still thought she could touch my world, to deface it in some petty, meaningless act of rebellion. I told the driver to stop. I got out of the car. She froze, caught in the bright lights like a startled animal. Her face was pale and gaunt, her eyes burning with a feverish hatred. Going to leave your mark, Chloe? I asked, my voice echoing in the quiet night. She flinched but stood her ground. You took everything from me, she spat, her voice trembling. I didn't take anything, I replied, walking slowly toward her. You tried to steal what was mine and you failed. You always fail. You're a parasite who lost her host. Leo loved me. The cry was ripped from her, raw and desperate. I laughed, a short, harsh sound. Leo loved the idea of saving a damsel in distress. He loved the power it gave him. The moment you became the distress itself, he threw you out of his hospital room, didn't he? Her face crumpled. I had struck the truest blow. You and your mother, I continued, closing the distance between us. You looked at my life, at my family's love, at my talent, and you thought you could just take it. You thought you were entitled to it. You never understood that you can't steal a soul. You can only break the vessel it comes in. And you failed at even that. I was standing right in front of her now. She was shaking, the can of paint trembling in her hand. What are you going to do, Sienna? She whispered, tears finally streaming down her face. Call the police? Have me arrested? Would that make you feel better? I looked at her, this hollowed-out remnant of the girl who had destroyed me in another life. The hatred was still there, a cold ember in my chest, but my mother's words echoed in my mind. When does it end? Calling the police would be the final logical step. It would be justice. But it would also tie me to her forever. There would be a trial, statements, a constant, ugly reminder. It would be another chain. I reached out not to strike her but to pluck the spray can from her limp fingers. She stared at me, bewildered. No, I said, my voice quiet but absolute. I'm not going to call the police. I'm done with you. I turned and walked back toward the house, then stopped, looking back at her one last time. This is the last time you will ever see me or come near my home, I said. If you do, I won't have you arrested. I will have my lawyers bury you and your mother in so much litigation you will spend the rest of your lives in a different kind of prison, drowning in paperwork and debt. You will be erased. Do you understand? She just stood there, weeping silently, utterly defeated. Get off my property. I didn't watch her go. I walked into the house, the solid oak door closing behind me with a final resonant thud that felt like the closing of a tomb. I leaned against it, my heart pounding, not from fear but from release. It was over. Truly over. The last thread was cut. My mother was waiting in the foyer. She didn't ask what happened. She just looked at my face, at the new piece she saw there, and opened her arms. I walked into her embrace, and for the first time since I had opened my eyes in this second chance, I felt the last of the ghostly chains of my past life fall away. The next morning, I instructed my mother's legal team to draw up a single, simple document. It was not a lawsuit. It was a legally binding cease and desist order, coupled with a one-time no admission of guilt settlement. The amount was a pittance, enough for 2 one-way bus tickets out of the city and a few months' rent in a small town nowhere near us. The condition was simple. They were to never contact me or any member of my family again, directly or indirectly. If they did, the full crushing weight of the Vance legal apparatus would descend upon them. They signed it within hours. They had no other choice. A week later, the surveillance report confirmed they had bought tickets and left. They were gone. I stood in my sun-drenched studio, a blank canvas before me. The air smelled of turpentine and fresh gesso, of possibility. The rage was gone. The need for revenge was sated. The shadow was lifted. I picked up a brush, dipped it in a vibrant, untested blue, and without a plan, without a thought of the past or the future, I made the first sweeping stroke. It was not an act of vengeance or a testament to survival. It was just a stroke of paint. It was the beginning of something new. It was for me. Time, which had once felt like a ticking bomb counting down to my ruin, now slowed to a gentle, meandering stream. The months following Chloe and Maya's departure were the most peaceful of my life in either lifetime. The silence they left behind was not an emptiness, but a spaciousness I filled with the colors and textures of a life lived for myself. My work began to change. The dark, tumultuous themes of betrayal and resurrection that had dominated my resonance period softened, giving way to an exploration of light and stillness. I painted vast, quiet landscapes that didn't exist, interiors flooded with morning sun, close-ups of flowers where the detail was so fine you could almost feel the velvet texture of the petals. My art became less about the story of Sienna Vance and more about the simple, profound beauty of existing. My mother watched the transformation with a quiet, relieved joy. The fierce, wounded creature I had been was healing, becoming a woman of quiet strength and undeniable grace. We spent more time together, not as co-conspirators in a war but as mother and daughter. We traveled not to escape but to discover. We visited galleries in Paris, studios in Florence, and ancient temples in Kyoto. I was rediscovering the world and in doing so rediscovering myself. It was on one of these trips, at a private viewing in a London gallery, that I saw him. Not Leo, whose name now felt like a relic from a history book. This was someone new. His name was Julian. Julian Asher. He was a few years older than me, an architect known for his sleek, sustainable designs that seemed to grow from their landscapes rather than being imposed upon them. He wasn't part of the old money circuit that had produced Leo. His family was one of academics and innovators. He was there with his sister, an art historian, and he was studying a particularly complex abstract piece with an intensity that was more analytical than artistic. Our host, a mutual friend, introduced us. Sienna Vance, the painter. Julian Asher, the man who draws buildings that breathe. Julian turned, and his eyes, a calm, intelligent gray, met mine. There was no flicker of recognition for the scandal that had once surrounded my name, no calculation of my family's net worth. There was only a genuine, curious interest. Vance, he said, his voice a warm, quiet baritone. I saw your resonance in a catalog. Formidable. It feels like it contains a whole history. Most people praised its technique or its emotional impact. No one had ever used the word history. He saw it. He saw the layers. We all contain histories, Mr. Asher, I replied, holding his gaze. Julian, please, he said with a small smile. And yes, I suppose we do. Though hopefully most are less dramatic than the one your painting suggests. We talked. About art, about architecture, about the light in London versus the light in New York. It was easy. It was normal. It was everything my relationship with Leo had never been. A conversation between two equals, with no agenda other than the pleasure of the exchange. He asked me out for coffee the next day. I said yes. Julian was different. He was steady. He listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, his words were considered and kind. He knew of my past, of course, it was public record, but he never brought it up. He seemed interested only in who I was now, in the woman I was becoming. With him, I didn't have to be the avenger or the victim. Could just be Sienna. Months turned into a year. Our relationship was a slow, gentle burn, a world away from the frantic, possessive intensity one had known with Leo. I introduced him to my mother, and the two of them, to my amusement, immediately fell into a deep discussion about the structural integrity of historical textiles. He fit into my life in a way that felt natural and unforced. One evening we were in my studio. He was looking at my latest series, Studies of the Hudson River at Different Times of Day. They're so peaceful, he remarked. There's a sense of resolution in them. I came to stand beside him, looking at the painting of the river at dusk, the water a mirror for the fading lilac sky. It feels that way to me too, I said softly. He turned to me, his expression serious. Sienna, the life you have now, is this the one you want? The question was simple, but its meaning was profound. He was asking about the future, our future. I looked around the studio at the evidence of my work in my piece. I thought of my mother, healthy and powerful. I thought of the silence where the voices of my enemies used to be. I thought of the man standing beside me who represented a future built on respect and shared passion, not on manipulation and greed. Yes, Julian, I said, my voice clear and sure. This is exactly the life I want. He smiled, a slow, heartfelt smile that reached his eyes. Good. He didn't propose that night. There was no grand, dramatic gesture. It was a quiet understanding, a mutual agreement to build a life together, one steady, beautiful day at a time. It was more meaningful than any trophy or confession ever could be. The final ghost of my past was laid to rest about 6 months later. I received a letter from my mother's head of security. It was a brief, clinical update. Leo Thorne had been moved to a long-term care facility specializing in patients with severe physical and psychological trauma. He was non-communicative and required constant care. The Thorne family, what was left of it, had scattered, their name now a cautionary tale in business journals. There was no satisfaction in reading it. No schadenfreude. It was just a piece of information, the closing of a file. He was a chapter that had ended and the book had moved on. Today I am in my studio, which is now flooded with the soft golden light of a late afternoon. The large canvas in front of me is no longer a solitary endeavor. There are 2 easels set up. On the smaller one is a bright, chaotic and wonderfully messy painting by a 4-year-old girl with my eyes and Julian's calm smile. Our daughter Isabel. She is babbling away, telling me a long, complicated story about the purple dragon she's painting. Julian is due home soon. He's designing our new house, one that he says will be a living extension of your canvases, full of light and space. My mother is coming for dinner. She adores her granddaughter, and the sound of Isabel's laughter has erased the last of the worry lines that my previous life had etched onto her face. I look at my daughter's painting, at the joyful, uninhibited splashes of color. It is a world away from the dark, calculated art of my revenge. It is pure, unadulterated life. I put down my brush and sweep Isabel into my arms, kissing her sticky cheek. She giggles, a sound that is the absolute antithesis of everything I once knew. I had been given a second chance, not just to rewrite my ending but to build a completely new story. I had used my first life to tear down the prison of my past. I was using my second to build a future, a family, a legacy of love on the ashes. The revenge was complete. The vengeance was sated. But this was living. This was the masterpiece I had been meant to create all along. I held my daughter close, breathing in the scent of paint and childhood, and knew with a certainty that settled deep in my soul that I was finally, completely free. The end.